Today, we are talking about 5 things we hate, but actually just dislike about our Victory motorcycles.
Hey folks, about to get some rain.
All right, we're out here. All right, so we're going to jump right into it. But if you haven't checked out the 5 things we love about our Victories, the card will be right there. All right, so number 1, the thing we hate or dislike. All 3 of us roughly have the same complaint when it comes to this, but it's fit and finish. And that's actually the one thing that we get from every Harley guy. When you actually compare one of these side by side with a Harley or even a new Indian, you can definitely see where Victory or Polaris save the money. The paintwork, one, I've scratched this bike in a million places. It's an old bike now, so I don't get too bent out of shape. But the paint is, they didn't kill any penguins when they made this paint. This stuff is definitely water-based. It scratches off so easy. I actually went to put the 4-point docking, or the whatever Victory called it, the docking hardware for the backrest on, and I actually scratched the bike very easily, and I barely touched it. The fender also has chips like that, but at this point, I call her my war horse because she's been through everything. The plastic in the fairing, another thing up here, this is pretty rattly. It's plastic that sits in the sun all the time when you're in parking lots or you're out riding, and after a few years and 40,000 miles, you start to hear it. When I hit bumps with my Harley that has 40,000 miles on it, I don't hear anything rattle in the fairing. This bike, I hear every time I hit a bump in the road, I hear everything rattling and creaking. I've done a few things on my own to try and fix that up, but basically, you know, it's the little things like that. And it's certainly not something that would steer me away from the bike, but like my Harley hasn't lost a single ounce of paint on any of the controls, but the Victory here is missing paint on almost all the controls. And there's actually more miles on the Harley. So it's little things like that that just slowly add up. You know, the wires are all exposed. They're not run through the bar like Harley does. Things like that. And you can just tell. There's a lot of exposed stuff that on other bikes they'd cover or put something, you know, behind something else so you don't see it. And Victory didn't do that. But at the same time, there was a cost savings involved with that. So it's not the end of the world. But it's just things you notice after a while.
If you go over the railroad tracks, it sounds like a box of Legos.
Yes, it really does. It really does, as Devin says.
Leaving on a trip, I've actually dodged body panels coming off of Graham's bike.
Yeah,
with
with 100,000 miles, some things started falling off. This one.
Leaving for Key West, I think we were in Pennsylvania, only the first 4 hours of trip, and I almost got hit in the face with this saddlebag cover. But great trip.
It happens.
Yeah, that was a good time.
It happens with these Victories. So, little things like that really add up to fit and finish not being on par with other brands. But it's still bulletproof. Nothing major is going to break. It just might be minor things like a body panel flying off.
All right, number 2 is the lack of aftermarket support. Obviously, a lot of it's due to the demise of Victory in 2017. To touch on that day, I remember getting the text at work from Bobby and literally looking up the article, like trying to figure out if it's true. And the feeling was actually like somebody you knew died. It was like just a gut-wrenching, because at that point we were all just enamored with our Victories. We were talking about, man, am I going to trade my one in for the new one? I think it's going to be liquid cooled and have 150 horsepower and it's going to have nav. We were ready to just be Victory people. So when Victory pulled the plug, it was a gut-wrenching feeling. I think a lot of people can relate to whether you got yours before or after that, but shitty day. So the start of this topic was the lack of aftermarket support. I've done a lot of stuff to all my bikes. These guys always make fun of me. My Highball, which is my other Victory, which is not here, so make sure you watch that video, which is a full rundown of my Highball. But you wish you could get there's a lot of great brands out there, so let's first credit the good companies, Witch Doctors, Vic Baggers, Dean Speed Customs, who makes bars and stuff. But I've put handlebars on with adapters. I've had to do different wiring to try to get LED lights. My Highball has Ducati smoked lens covers. You wish there was more Victory product support out there, and I don't want to discredit the people that do exist because there are some great companies, but you just do not have the choice of parts and accessories like you do for, Indian, even being slightly new in the market, because I think they just got a lot more cred because they're the name. Harley, obviously, this stuff's endless. So we do worry. Obviously, the accessories aren't there, even though you can still do a lot. You just got to really know where to look. They say they'll have parts for 10 years. I do worry about Victory-specific parts. You'll always be able to get your brakes, your bearings, and all that stuff because somebody else made it, the belt, whatever. But another 20 years from now, it'll be interesting. But nonetheless, I have a 1979 Kawasaki, so if I can get parts for that, I can get parts for 2014 cross country. It's just a shame it crushed a lot of aftermarket companies, right when they got started in Victory. So kudos to the people that are still hanging out there in the Victory world. So I'm taking this subject again, number 3, heat. It's probably the only thing I actually hate about this bike. Everything else is just nitpicks. This is one thing I actually hate about this bike. After getting used to 20K on my Harley, I rode this bike again today. I don't know how I did it. So now when I have multiple baggers now, I tend to ride this bike in the early season and the late season where it's, anywhere from 35 to whatever. Because after 80 degrees, this bike's actually kind of miserable. A lot of it is with the lowers, keep a lot of the heat in. But the problem is without the lowers, you get into insane buffeting. So we'll cover that after. The lowers are just so big, they block almost all the air. Doors aren't big enough. These bikes just run hot. People say they're okay. My oil temp runs at like anywhere from 240 to 260. They're just screaming. Even to this day, 70,000 miles almost in, I still check the switch in my heated seat because I'm like, this heat's got to be on. I think it's got to be on. I think so. It's not. When we rode in Florida, it was like 103, 105 on the asphalt, and I think I actually had like second-degree burns on my very white legs, just like stayed there. I was about this color at the end of a 500-mile day. It's the heat. I actually have like some double-sided like aluminum bubble foil insulation under this seat to try to help some of it from coming up to my ass. Doesn't matter. So heat's a big thing on these bikes, but
Cam's made it a little warmer.
Cam definitely made it warmer. Like I said, hate's a strong word. No bike is perfect, but I'd spend good money for a cooled seat like Indian has. I'd spend $1,000, 100%. It wouldn't fix my legs though, so.
Mine also runs hot.
All right, so if you watched our 5 things we love about Victories, I mentioned how these guys call me James May. And one of the things I always say is buffeting. Anyone who has a Victory cross country knows that these things buffet, and I think it's because the fairing is so far away from you. As Devin mentioned in the other video, they're a long bike, so the fairing has actually got a little distance to you. So I have my PhD in wind management. I did everything I could on this bike that didn't look atrocious. So I went with a Clockworks windshield to try and cut down some of the buffeting that comes over the top. I had to add the OEM Victory style louvers here on the side of the fairing to cut down some. And then Witch Doctor sells another plate to prevent wind from coming up behind the fairing. So I had to add all 3 of those just to cut down on the buffeting, because if you're wearing a helmet on this bike, a full face helmet, you feel it all over the top of the helmet where it's pushing your head side to side, left to right. And it's annoying when you're riding that long. So it's just one of the things that everyone talks about on the Victory forums all day long. It's just something that you have to deal with. The lowers there too also cut down a little bit of buffeting, but that's really to keep the wind off your legs. So that doesn't really affect, your helmet bouncing around while you're going down the highway, but I think I've got it dialed in. I haven't made any changes to this bike in a long time, so I think I have it exactly how I need it for my height. And I'm 6 foot, so it works.
I think you've only changed the battery.
Shut up.
So to tie 2 points together, the heat and the buffeting, it's kind of a double-edged sword. The lowers help prevent a lot of buffeting, I think, from the wind that rolls up and under your fairing. I'm sorry. They're great for the rain. They're great for all that protection, but they create a lot of heat by blocking all the air. So I've tried running without them, but then the second you jump on the highway, you maybe you're a little bit cooler, but the wind wants to rip your head off. So you kind of decide what you hate more, heat or buffeting. So I just leave the lowers on. They're great when it's 40 out. All that heat's welcomed, but it's a battle between buffeting and heat. I mean, if you want to go down the highway like this, that's cool. But we do a lot of highway riding. We do. We get a lot of 200, 300, 400-mile highway jaunts. So you want to be comfortable. Or our last nitpick of these bikes, it's just kind of the hand controls in general. Bobby mentioned all his paint's wearing off, but I think there's just something wrong. Maybe he needs to shower or something more because all my paint's still here and I have double his mileage. Well, my blinker's gone, but all my other buttons are intact. My beef is really the radio controls and the cruise controls. They're definitely like an added afterthought. All the wires are hanging out, so you could internally wire them. We've done that before on Victories. But they just look like an afterthought and bulky hanging down. And then unless you have Godzilla-sized hands, you can't. You can only reach one side of the button. You have to move your hand off the bars to get to the other buttons. So they're not very ergonomic. I hate to say it, but Harley does a nicer job with the current four-way joysticks switches. It's a little thing. The hand controls, they're just awkward, to reach. You can only reach so far. This one's not as bad as your throttle hand, but yeah, and I smoked 2 of these. This is my 3rd one. They don't like the rain, apparently. I don't know if it's because the apes. Mine's up kind of out of the windshield range and water gets driven in the back. I actually, before I put the 3rd hand control on, because I got sick of replacing them, I added silicone to the back where the wire goes in. I think I did some sort of, I forget what I did. I sealed this entire thing up somehow so that hopefully this one doesn't die on me. That's it. Let us know if there's something you don't like about your Victory. And
on the other hand, my hand controls are completely worn off. I ride hard, and I like to eat tacos. And the taco grease from my hands, because I eat tacos while I'm riding, wears all the stuff right off the buttons, and I ate a lot of tacos. But anyways, those are the few things we hate or dislike about our Victories. Great bikes. If you have any questions, comment them down below. We'll try to answer all the questions best we can for people who want to know about Victories or thinking about getting one. And if you like these mic holders we came up with, these are the HSU extensions, aluminum extensions. We just clipped our little microphones on the ends so we can hold them and pass them around. And you can get yourself a set of these on hsu.shop, I believe.
yeah, we'll put a link.
Promo code 3amigos for 10% off at checkout. And ride safe, ride hard.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.